Charley, his hopes blasted, was driven back to the Bent farm. There the old mountaineer left him with the words, "Don't wander off no more, or somebody'll take notion to shoot you. The hills is full of squirrel hunters now." Again Charley nodded and sat down. He waited on the porch, listening to the cicadas and crickets until dusk, and he saw Canaan and Granny returning. And then he ran to the hen house, squeezed back inside, and put the rotten boards up again. And when the old woman let him out, she was none the wiser about his adventure. The final Sunday in July, Granny Bent took him to Hern Hollow church. Washed, wearing a clean shirt, Charley sat on a backless bench next to her, marveling at how different this mountain church was from the one he had gone to in New York City. Where were the statues of Christ, the Virgin Mary, and the saints? Where were the stained glass windows or the paintings of the Stations of the Cross? Where was the sweet incense and the altar boys and the choir and the fine vestments for the priest? How plain this church was! Here everything was white, brown, and black. Whitewashed walls, brown benches, and dingy black and gray clothing with the strong smell of lye soap about them. There was no beautiful singing. First came the twanging of the tuning fork, and then the voices of the mountaineers, singing not in Latin, but in English. And some of the women had good voices, but they scarcely could be heard over the growling bass of the visiting preacher, a big white-headed man in a black coat and tattered trousers. After the service came the most astonishing thing of all, the foot washing. Some older people took off their shoes and had their feet washed in basins of water and dried with towel rags by others. No one washed Charley's feet or ordered him to wash anyone's, but Granny Bent's feet got washed by Sarah Giffen, and Coy McGray washed the horny yellow ones of the old man. And when that was over, there was a sort of party on the porch of the store. Most of the families that had come down from the hillside farms had brought food with them, cooked pork and cornbread, buttermilk, wild honey from bee trees, and lard crust berry pies. Nobody invited Charley to sit down until Sarah Giffen came up to him, took his hand, and led him to where she and her family, her older sister, her sister's war-wounded husband, and their 3 little ones were sitting with Granny Bent. Sarah sat him down beside a small black-haired boy, filled his hands with food, and then sat a distance away on a step, crooning to her sister's just-baptized new baby. As Charley ate, Sarah smiled at him now and then. What a peach she was, thought Charley. If only he could talk to her. But he didn't dare open his mouth except to shovel food into it. And after a while he saw Coy McGray go over to Sarah and say something in her ear. And whatever he said, it made Sarah angry. She scowled and then swung about and hit Coy hard on the ear with her open hand. Everybody who saw her do it laughed, while Coy glowered with rage. Now Charley got up slowly. He walked over to Coy and the girl and stood waiting, his hands in his pockets. He locked eyes with Coy, who glared back at him. Charley recalled what Johnny had said once. Watch for the light in the man's eyes. It tells you when he's going to make the first move in a fight. There was a flicker he'd waited for. Like a flash, Charley's right hand came out of his pocket and hit Coy full on the nose. Then, as Coy doubled over, he hit him in the stomach, and Coy went down. And not for long, though. He was soon up, ready to rush Charley and wrestle him. This time, the visiting preacher stopped the fight, thrusting himself between the boys. His powerful hands shot out east and west as he grabbed each boy by the neck, brought their heads together, and cracked them hard. As he did, he bellowed, "There won't be no ruction on the Lord's day." "Boy," called Granny Bent the minute the minister let Charley go, flinging him away, his head ringing with pain. A dizzy Charley wove his way over to her and sat down where she had patted. She asked him so softly that nobody else heard her amid all the laughter, "Do you think you had a good reason to hit Coy?" Charley nodded firmly, his eyes blazing with joy for what he had just done. He'd gotten even with the mountain boy, and everybody here who had been there the first time, they knew it. Charley turned toward Sari. The girl was rocking back and forth on the step with the baby, not looking at anyone. The white skin of her face had turned up to rose red, though. Was she angry with him? He hoped not. He'd meant well by her. As he looked, she turned her head and gave him a quick little grin. He next turned his gaze toward Coy, who sat between two old men. The boy was holding a rag to his bloody nose. He was looking at the rag, not at Charley. All at once, Charley realized that this fight wasn't like the ones he had had with the dead rabbits in the Bowery. He'd fought there because it was the expected way to act towards a rival gang. Here, he had fought because he guessed Coy had said something bad to Sari. Yes, this was different. This was a fight he had chosen to fight because somebody else had been hurt. And Charley Quinn felt good about himself.